Hello friends, this is your friend Professor Iqbal here. Once again, I welcome all of you to my YouTube channel, My Grammar Classes. In this episode of lecture, we will particularly discuss three figures of speech which are very important as far as study of figures of speech is concerned. Let us see which are those. The first one is personification. Now let us understand what is personification. A personification is a figure of speech in which non-human things or abstract ideas or concepts are spoken as though they have human attributes or feelings. Sometimes animals and birds are also personified in poetry. Now let us take some examples of personification. The tree nodded the very traveler. How is it possible? How tree can nod to any very traveler? Is it possible for a tree to nod? So here the tree is personified. Let us take one more example. The old armchair received the fat visitor. The old armchair received the fat visitor. How is it possible for an armchair to receive anyone? Practically it is not possible. So here we have personified an armchair. The night has 1,000 eyes, but the day one. The night has 1,000 eyes, but the day one. Here the night and day are personified. Is it practically possible for night to have 1,000 eyes? Is it practically possible for a day to have any eyes? So here the night and the day are personified. Even we can have one more example of personification which is very famous. The death lays his icy hand on kings. Death lays his icy hand on kings. This is very famous example. So this is what we need to understand what personification is. Now let us go to the next device or next figure of speech which is widely used in English poetry. That is oxymoron. Now when it comes to oxymoron, what is oxymoron? Let us understand. It is nothing but a fusion of contradictory ideas. Okay. In oxymoron there will be self-contradictory ideas. Two things which will go against each other will be used. For example, freezing fire. How fire can freeze? So this is contradictory, the self-contradictory idea you can say. Or you can at the same time say cruel kindness. How kindness can be cruel? Is it practically possible for us to say that kindness can be cruel? Sweet sorrow. How sorrow can be sweet? Is it practically possible for us to say? No. Loving hatred. Is it possible for us to say hatred can be loving? No, it is not possible. Now there is one more example which is very famous, used by John Milton in his famous book who says darkness visible when he describes the hell. In Paradise Lost, when he describes hell, he says darkness visible. How is it possible? Is it possible for any person to see darkness? So practically it is not possible. So he says darkness visible when he talks about hell. Now there are many such examples you can have as far as oxymoron is concerned. Now but let me tell you one thing. You should not confuse yourself between oxymoron and paradox. Paradox will have a complete statement and it will be false in order to have a meaningful sense. But here it can be a phrase and it is not false to have a meaningful sense. Okay. Now let us go to the third one, which is onomatopoeia. What actually happens in onomatopoeia? The words imitate sound which they actually describe. The words imitate the sound which they actually suggest or describe. Now, for example, hissing and buzzing, hustling and rustling. These are the actual words. They describe the sound which they make. They describe the sound which they make. It is a sound device. No doubt onomatopoeia is a sound device and it has its own structure. It has its own structure. So the words imitate the sound and suggest the meaning what they describe or refer to. What they describe or refer to. For example, a wasp buzzes. A snake hisses. A wasp buzzes. A snake hisses. At the same time, you can have one example of onomatopoeia like over the cobbles he clattered and clashed in the dark inn-yard. Clattered and clashed in the dark inn-yard. So clattering and clashed, these are the words which actually indicate the sound which they make. One more example we can have. Lot, lot in the frosty silence. Lot, lot in the echoing night. Lot, lot in the echoing night. So here lot, lot, these are the words which refer actually the sound which they make. And it is also called as echoing device. Onomatopoeia is also called as a figure of speech of echoism. A figure of speech of echoism, and it can be used in its narrow sense as well as broad sense. It can be used in its narrow sense as well as broad sense. So there are many examples which we can have about onomatopoeia. Let us see some of them. One more example for onomatopoeia is, they nightly sings the staring owl to it to a merry note. This is one example from Shakespeare's quotes. Then another example from Lord Tennyson, the moan of doves in immemorial elms and murmuring of innumerable bees. Murmuring of bees. So this is onomatopoeia, the device. We need to understand. And the words which are generally used in onomatopoeia are hum, buzz, bang, crack, hiss. Actually indicate the very sound they make. The very sound they make. And because of this reason, onomatopoeia is a device of echoism. Onomatopoeia is a device of echoism. That is very important. Onomatopoeia is sometimes called as echoism because it reflects the sound which it makes. There are many examples you can have. Maybe it is the cracking of door, maybe it is, hooting of an owl. So they can be the examples of onomatopoeia. So this is something what I wanted to convey you as far as personification is concerned, then oxymoron is concerned, and onomatopoeia is concerned. Even if you have any doubt about these three devices, if you want to ask me something about this, I expect your responses. And if you ask me, if you make a request to me in order to create any of the videos, then definitely your request will be taken care, and I will definitely make a video on it. So thank you everyone for watching this video. May God bless.